Hello friends and welcome. Patch 7.37 came out last night. It's continuing this trend where there are some interesting changes, and balance-wise, some stuff makes sense and some stuff is like, I don't know about this change. So I'm going to highlight some of those big ones for you. The others, maybe just take some time. Maybe there's some cooking that needs to go on. I won't dive too deep into the heroes right now because it is, of course, just day one. But let's at least cover some of the big things that I do think are worth knowing from this patch. In terms of general changes, the biggest thing is a change to Roshan. So the first Rosh is the same. Second Rosh, it is now always going to drop the banner. This should, in theory, make it easier to end the game. Going high ground is often the hardest part for a lot of pubs, and this is where there's a lot of throws. The Roshan's banner makes it safer to do so by making the creeps invulnerable for 2 minutes. I'm going to do a video in the near future, I think, because I see a lot of banner usage that I don't fully agree with. I think there's an optimal way to use it. Of course, it is a relatively new item, so I'm open to seeing some different stuff, but I am starting to form some strong opinions on it that I will go more in depth on in the future. I do think this should make games a little bit easier to end once people learn to use Roshan's banner more effectively. Third Rosh, Refresher Shard and Cheese are going to drop in the day, Aghanim's Blessing at night. I think this is a fine change because a lot of games you wanted the Aghanim's Blessing because it's just generally more useful. Most heroes have a fairly good Aghanims, whether it is something you want to buy or something it's just nice to get for free from doing Roshan at some point, or you already have Aghanims, so you get the Aghanim's Blessing and then you refund the gold. Fantastic. The Refresher Shard was really good for some heroes, and for everyone else it's like kind of nice but kind of whatever. And if you already had a refresher, you don't get to refund the refresher with a new one and then just get the money back like the Aghanim's Blessing. You just had another refresher which shared the same cooldown, so you can't use both anyways. So it was really weird. So I like that they are trying something to balance it out, and they're going to put cheese with the refresher. I don't know how it's going to fully balance quite yet, but I like that we're trying to balance the daytime versus nighttime Roshan. Smaller general changes worth noting: the mines and the well are being nerfed a little bit. It won't be a huge deal for most pub games in my opinion. Just some side jungling, some carries will care a little bit, but a lot of people just won't really even notice this. Teleport to Roshan's outpost is also going to be faster. Instead of 6 seconds, it's going to go to 4 seconds, which means it's faster to teleport over, to fight over Roshan, die, buyback, teleport, all that stuff. So you just have to be a little more careful when you are fighting around it, or you can maybe push a side lane for a little bit, 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds longer before TPing down, and you'll save a little bit of time before you can then join the fight. There's a lot of quality of life clarification for things in the game. We have a lot of different mechanics. It's not always clear. So this time, they're going to add an area of effect icon to different tooltips. It is up to date as of now. We'll see how that continues in the future, but this should help you understand when Bloodstone or other AoE increasing things like Rubik's Arcane Accumulation Facet, when they will affect different abilities and whatnot. There is now a classification for teleports. This is going to be important for Underlord. He got a change to his stuff. So teleports are now specifically classified. It doesn't matter in most cases. Breaking, so anything that has a break, which changed a little bit, but for example, Nick Shard now breaks, spoiler alert. If you have a break and you weren't sure what you could break, there is now much more clarity on it. It is a really big list that we're not going to read right now, but you should be able to hover over abilities. Again, I assume accurate right now, we'll see about in the future, but there's things that are like partially disabled by break. You can read all this and try to memorize it if you want on some flashcards, but realistically, you'll just go into a game like, can I break this? Hover over it, you'll see it. Fantastic. There's more clarity on what abilities will be blocked or reflected from Lincoln's and Lotus. There's a whole bunch of stuff here, not going to read it. Item changes, there's a lot of small buffs and nerfs to a lot of these, but I'll just highlight some of the notable ones. Roshan's banner, a bit more radius size to place it more safely to help you siege the high ground. Bracer, this is going to be big for universal cores. I don't know if you're really going to want to buy it anymore because they are taking away the damage and changing it to health. A lot of universal heroes like to buy 1 or 2 bracers for the laning stage. It gave them the stats, it tanked them up, gave them some HP regen, and then gave them some damage, and then doubled at 25 if they still had it. So it was just a lot, very valuable for universal heroes. Now it is going to give health instead. So I think it will shift to more of a support item where, I need some health, it's a rough game, what can I spend it on? For 505 gold, you can get this item, which will double at 25 minutes, and in total, it'll give you this 100 health, plus the 5 strength is going to go up to 10 strength, and that's going to give you another 220 health, so 320 health from a 505 gold item for supports. I think that's going to be very nice. We've been in an aura meta for a little bit now where a lot of the pro teams, you want several of the auras. Maybe a support buys one, an offlaner buys like 2 others. Whatever the mix is, people buy auras, the solars, the glimmers, all that, and you play pretty fast. So auras just across the board getting nerfed. I don't know if it's actually enough. I think it might still be good to build auras. This is where we'll revisit this in about a week. We'll see what still feels good or not. Can't fully tell just after a day, but that seems to be what they're trying to do, is to nerf some of these auras. The last item change that I really want to note is that, small buff to solar. I think it's nice. I don't think it's gonna like make it broken or anything. Shadow amulet. So 2, shadow amulet. You used to like sit still and shadow amulet yourself. Really big for witch doctor, warlock, crystal maiden sometimes. Anyone who channels for a long time could shadow amulet for a long duration of invis. They're gonna change it now. So it's going to be more in line with the duration of the upgraded items. So 3.5 seconds for the fade duration. That's how long you're going to be invis. And then the cooldown is much higher. You can't just like constantly use it on yourself forever. And then when you do use it on yourself, you can actually now move, but you'll be slowed by 35%. So very slow, but some movement in this invis. A lot of the times, most people would just upgrade it to the next item anyway, so it doesn't matter too much to you, but it is a big deal to like Warlock and Witch Doctor, who liked the extended invis for their very long channel times. Vessel and Urn are being changed a little bit. In particular, the item recipe for Urn, we're changing the circlet for a fluffy hat and adjusting the recipe. This makes it worse to build. A lot of heroes like to start with a circlet for the laning stage and then upgrade it to an Urn of Shadows. Now you're not going to be able to do that. It's still the same cost, so you can get it fairly quickly if you need it, but that build up a little worse. These other items, you could start with them in the laning stage, but it's not as good as a circlet because the circlet actually gave you damage. Then the Spirit Vessel is going to use a Vitality booster instead of the old components, which again was nice for certain heroes. Like you get the circlet, you build the Urn, you get the crown, you finish the Spirit Vessel. The buildup was very nice with all the small components. It's now harder to buy. It's more gold at once, like the Vitality booster, and instead of giving you stats, it's giving you health. So some heroes will like this change, but actually not that many. I actually can't even think of who would. Like the end item is very similar. It's actually a little worse in terms of raw damage, but better in terms of reducing health. So a more targeted item at high regen heroes like Alchemist, and not so good in general on a hero like Invoker, who might still build it, but it will do a little less damage if you don't actually need the health regen reduction part. Neutral item changes, there are some very notable things. I think the overarching idea is that Valve wants you to use a tier 1 neutral item when it is time for the tier 1 neutral items. And when tier 2 neutral items come out, you're supposed to use a tier 2 neutral item and not keep using tier 1 neutral items and then swapping stuff around. So for example, Trusty Shovel. You can now dig up water runes in the river. Really cool for mid laners who rarely took Trusty Shovel, or a support player. You could dig it in the river if you don't really need the other stuff and refill your mid laner's bottle. Cool. But when it comes time to get a tier 2 neutral, this will no longer tick down in your backpack. So you can't, use your favorite Philosopher's Stone and then like, oh, it's shovel time, put the shovel in, dig, okay, swap back, right? It was nice, but they seem to be wanting to change that. I do think this additional water rune is a cool addition to it, so I still think it'll be a great item, but it will then be time to move on to the tier 2 items when it gets there. Fairy's Trinket being cycled out for now. Maybe it'll come back and be adjusted, but this is another item where a lot of people didn't really care for it, but some people cared for it a lot. Into the tier 2 and sometimes even like beyond, they would just keep the Fairy's Trinket. So for now, cycled out. Ironwood Tree is back. Pigpole, slight adjustment. Iron Talon tier 2, it's back. A lot of core players will just jungle with this. I have some ideas for it as a support player. Hold that thought. Philosopher's Stone, beloved item among support players. It has a limit now. So 750 charges. It is 75 GPM, so in 10 minutes of holding the Philosopher's Stone, it will use up all the charges, it will break, you will get a bonus 375 gold, that's as if like 5 more minutes of the Philosopher's Stone, and then it's gone. There's no swapping it in and out anymore, it is gone. I have some ideas for this. For now, if you like Philosopher's Stone, go ahead and take it. When it breaks, move on. Tier 3 neutral item. I am going to explore some thoughts I have on this, and it will be a separate video in the future once I work that out. Keep an eye out for that. Pupil's Gift, slight buff. Vambrace is being moved to tier 3, and it's being adjusted a little bit. The numbers to me, agility heroes, I don't think you care about it. I think this is a good item if you need to tank up 10 strength and 10 magic resist, decent. And then intelligence heroes, if you want to like amp up your damage, could be okay. But I'm not really sold on that. I think other items are probably better. Ogre Steel Totem is moving to tier 4, slight buffs to compensate. It's a good item, so I think that's fair. And then Martyr's Plate being cycled out. Small changes to the neutral creeps. You probably don't have to care too much in most pubs. The main thing I would say for any support players here, the Harpy Stormcrafter will not always use Chain Lightning if attacked by lane creeps when pulled. What this means is when you had a Harpy camp and you pull it, it would use a lot of Chain Lightning, killing off a bunch of your creeps, which was awesome for the pull, but a little unbalanced. So it won't always do that. I don't quite know what that means. Like, is it 50% of the time, 70, 20? I don't really know. Gonna have to dig into this. But it does mean in general, when you're pulling the Harpy Stormcrafter camp, don't expect it to be as good as it used to be. Hero changes, there are a lot. And the overarching trend again is that there were many facets and innate abilities that didn't seem that cool. So they are trying to address that. A lot of innate abilities that were just, here's your ability, but you get it at the start. Many of those have been removed and replaced with something unique or some other version of it. So that is the overarching trend. Some facets got removed, some got added. More heroes have 3 facets now. I won't go through every single one. What we're going to do actually, though, is take a look at the Dota buff trends. And I'll go over some of the heroes with the biggest win rate changes, some of the worst, and we'll talk about a couple of the like broken heroes. Are they still broken or not? And then like, is this doable? It seems like a grief, but maybe it's funny. You know, we'll talk about a couple of those. Kunkka had a whole mixture of changes here. The big things is that Torrent Storm got removed, the Aghanims. It is now going to be 2 ships on your ultimate. They fire cannonballs now. Cool idea. I haven't actually seen it in my game yet. I think the big thing, though, is that Admiral's Rum, I haven't exactly done the math yet, but it's his new innate ability. And in the same way Shadow Shaman was really broken because it was really hard to kill him now, I believe Admiral's Rum will work in a very similar way, which is that when you take damage below 65% health, you trigger Admiral's Rum. It can stack with the boat from the rum from your boat and the rum from your X mark. So I'm pretty sure this makes Kunkka really hard to kill, and I think that's why he's finding a lot of success now. I haven't actually seen it in any of my games, so I'm not going to try to speak further to it than that. Viper has a new innate ability called Predator. It's actually something he used to have in a different ability, but his attacks will now do extra physical damage based on the missing percentage of his target. Nature's Prophet got some buff to the Ironwood Treant. For example, it's a lot faster, has a lot better vision. It's only a single target tree, which I'm a little mixed on. On one hand, you break less of your trees, so your innate ability is like you still get trees around you instead of breaking them all. The downside is that like when you want to cut a lot of trees, like against a Monkey King, a Hoodwink, Treant Protector, you can't. So like a bit of a double-edged sword on that side. Wrath of Nature now hits all visible targets instead of having a limit, but after the 16th bounce, it does not increase in damage. This is a big buff. I think this is a big reason why his win rate has jumped up a lot. Curse of the Old Growth also uses the Treant multiplier. So like for Ironwood Treant, it has a multiplier of 5 when it comes to your innate because you used to summon 5 Treants, now it's 1. So to like balance it, multiplies by 5. Curse of the Old Growth will count your Ironwood Treant as 5 trees. I would like to note that although he is like 3rd highest in terms of win rate increase, note his overall win rate is still low, which is common for natures because he's a difficult hero and he's easy to grief with, but I still don't think he is top of the meta, anything like that. Okay, let's just be clear. Increase in win rate means like they got a positive buff, but he might still not be as good as other heroes. That's where Nature's is right now. But if you like him, you can do some ratting builds, and it is pretty funny. I did try it once. Tinker, big buff to the heal bots from 30 at max level to 45. 50% increase. That's a lot. Along with every other aura builder being nerfed from the item being nerfed, Tinker has the CDR on his innate ability, which would make the auras easy to use at a very low cooldown. I am very interested in healing bot Tinker, either as a support or as maybe an off lane. I have not yet gotten to try it, but I am very interested in this. Actually, while we're here, let's skip down to the biggest losers of the patch. Tiny, crash landing nerfed just across the board. So the Facet itself was nerfed a little bit. The damage no longer pierces magic resistance, which a lot of people thought was a bug, but Toss does pierce debuff immunity, so it wasn't factoring the magic resistance from debuff immunity. It's no longer going to do that. I don't know if it was really a bug or just like a weird oversight, but I don't really think it was a bug, but it won't do it anymore anyways. Grow also lost some of the bonus Toss damage, so they just stopped deleting heroes with crash landing. Haven't seen it since it's nerfed, but his win rate does suggest that it was an effective change. Phantom Lancer was not popular. They tried to change stuff around. I believe I saw some people saying there were bugs around Phantom Lancer, but I don't really know what they were. The idea here that they went for is that items that grant bonus damage, instead of granting the bonus damage, which is if you look at your stats, like the white number is base damage and then the green number is bonus damage. You get that from things like Desolator and Daedalus, just like raw damage, as opposed to agility for an agility hero giving you base damage or your stat growth. That's the difference. For Phantom Lancer, they're making it so if you were to buy a Desolator, for example, it gives 65% of the bonus damage, and it converts that into base damage, and you don't get any of the bonus damage. Why does this matter? Because illusions do not copy bonus damage, but they do copy base damage. So I believe that is the idea behind this change, and ignoring any bugs the hero might be facing right now, which I heard like some of this damage just isn't calculating properly, which is definitely a problem. I think the idea is pretty interesting and should open up some new potential builds for Phantom Lancer, though currently his like most popular build is like Treads, Ags, Diffusal, Manta, like some mix of those items in some order. None of those actually give bonus damage. So the same build isn't really seeing any change here, but maybe there is a new build. For example, maybe you buy an early Vlad's, and the Vlad's bonus damage only worked on base damage, which means later as you build like a Desolator, right, you then get more bonus damage from the Vlad. Something like that. Maybe you pick him with like a Vengeful Spirit, Amplify Damage Rune, tons of value from that. So I think it's a cool idea, and I don't know if the numbers just aren't there or if it is just the bugs that have tanked his win rate, but it does not seem to be the time to play PL until they address whatever it is. Shadow Fiend used to get an extra soul every time he got a kill. That is now only going to be on the Lasting Presence facet, not the other one, which I forget what it's called, but everyone took that one because it applied the slow on Shadow Rays, which is what let him set up kill potential. And Shadow Rays also got a small nerf, 5 mana to the spell and then 1 second off the stack durations. Some other small changes here, making the spellcaster Shadow Fiend worse, and that's why you see his win rate drop so much. Huskar has a new facet. It will do 1% of enemy max HP every second on Burning Spears, and it will now cost 4% of your max HP instead of 4% current. So you do more damage to yourself, but you do a lot more damage to the opponent. Sounded good on paper. The win rate, I guess it's not. Maybe it's just more people trying this in situations you're not supposed to. Not fully sure. Maybe it's Vessel being more effective against Huskar. Viper is very effective versus Huskar. There might be some interaction there that I'm overlooking right now. I thought it's a cool idea, but I guess it's maybe not a good idea. While I'm here, guys, Jakiro's still really good. What the heck? They only nerfed his talent, attack range talent. It's a good talent, but The big reason for playing Jakiro is because Q does an insane amount of damage at like level 2, level 3 in the laning stage, and that didn't get nerfed, so keep playing Jakiro if you like this guy. Sand King got a variety of changes. The big thing here is that Stinger is being addressed a lot. I think it might be overkill in what it's doing, but it roughly functions the same, just worse across the board in terms of like damage, cooldown, all of that. Then the other thing to note is that Epicenter is being changed. Instead of the agonyms that it used to have, it now, when you use Epicenter, every half second, 3 Stinger attacks like shoot out randomly. So we might see some right-click builds, like you build the usual stuff and then go into right-click stuff, because it does do a lot of damage as the Stingers shoot out everywhere, but I don't know if that's a meme or actually good to be explored. Darkseer is one of the best off lanes. He has been nerfed. So base strength is down, and now intelligence cannot be lower than the average of strength and agility. So what a lot of people were doing is buying 4 gauntlets of strength at the start, boosting your strength really high, and intelligence couldn't be below strength or agility, so it would boost your intelligence really high to match the strength. Now, if you try to do that same build, agility is still far back, which means your strength may shoot up, but your intelligence will only shoot up half as much, especially because your base strength got nerfed by 2. So this hurts Darkseer's laning stage quite a lot. That's why he's had a significant drop in win rate. Note though that Darkseer and Sand King both have still above 50% win rate. For Darkseer, the laning stage is worse, but the hero at its core, right, the Ion Shell, the illusion creating, the vacuum, the aura builds, those didn't get nerfed specifically to Darkseer. Auras as a whole got nerfed, but if it's still in meta, he is still a really good aura builder, and that's why I still think he'll be okay. Similar to Sand King, you still have flex between mid and off lane. Maybe one role is better after, a few days people figure it out. But the instant stun, the bloodstone, all of that still seems good. And Stinger is just more balanced because Stinger was broken. So the fact that it got nerfed, it's just now like okay. It's a fine ability, and that's why I still think Sand King is a good hero. Now let's talk about some interesting changes. Some of these are good, some are bad, but they're just fun changes that, maybe if you don't play anymore, you'd at least like to know about. So Bristleback getting some buffs here. Seeing Red, Facet, it's a new one, so now he has 3 choices. You will get 50% bonus attack damage and 50% bonus move speed per stack, but your vision becomes limited in a cone. And I did some testing. Even if you have teammates provide vision, it doesn't matter. All Bristleback can see is like a little cone in front of him, like he's wearing blinders. The other thing to change here is that he has Prickly, a new innate ability, and he will do 10% more damage and have 10% more debuff duration against enemies that are behind him. So what seems to be the play is you do the same Aghanim's build that shoots all the quills out your back. You go fight. Aghanim's quill spray someone, they're behind you, so you're doing bonus damage. Pew, 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 pew. Then you've got a bunch of stacks on them. Maybe they didn't die. You need to kill them. Turn back around, activate Warpath, go chase them, and you're just keeping them in your line of sight like a, shark, so you can't see everything else going on behind you, but like, that's my target. I'm super fast, got my damage. I'm going to beat them to death and then move on to the next target. So does seem good for the hero. He might be coming back into the meta. Chaos Knight got buffed because irrationality. No one takes this facet, but they did buff it so that 33% chance of doing nothing is now going to silence. So it could be silence, break, or disarm, which, for example, Bristleback, this could be good. You could silence him, you could disarm him, or you could break him. All 3 good options. So if Phantasmagoria maybe gets nerfed, or maybe there's a game you don't really want Phantasmagoria, you want irrationality, then you have a choice. If not, you just play the same Phantasmagoria Chaos Knight. Didn't really get touched, so I don't know. That's still gonna be really good. Death Prophet has a new facet, which, new facet, Morning Ritual. You essentially delay damage. So you get nuked, and based on the level of your ultimate, let's say it's max level, 50%. So Lina Laguna blades you, 50% of that damage comes immediately. The remaining 50% comes as delayed damage over 1 second intervals for 5 seconds. This is really good, in my opinion, for Death Prophet, because a big problem is people focusing you. You get killed before your ultimate, and Spirit Siphon can do that much. So now it is very difficult to burst a Death Prophet, and as she takes the remaining damage over 5 seconds, there's a good chance that she can use Spirit Siphon or Yules, or maybe her ultimate comes back to her and heals her up, and she will not be burst killed before getting a lot of value out in team fights. So this seems like a very good facet for Death Prophet. Doom has a new facet. Every 6.66 minutes, the duration of Doom is going to go up by 0.66 seconds. This is doubled for Turbo since it's shorter. And it means by like 30, 40 minutes, you have about 4 extra seconds of Doom, which I think could kind of be good. A lot of people don't seem to be using Devil's Bargain. Like, I thought we would see like buy stuff, sell stuff, like a whole bunch of all that. A little bit, but it doesn't seem like a ton. And there's also a downside of buyback cost. The Gluttony facet seems good when you're playing against Enchantress, Chen, things like that. But if you don't need either of those, then maybe this third new facet could be cool. Earth Spirit has a new facet, Ready to Roll. It essentially treats an allied hero you roll over like a Stone Remnant. It will give you bonus move speed, distance, damage, and stun duration. And for that allied hero, it will give them more move speed. So seems cool, seems to have buffed up his win rate. I don't know how good this is because I don't actually play that much Earth Spirit, but I imagine in situations where you're ganking, you roll over someone, you stun the target, because your ally has move speed, they can now run up and help you faster. Or you're running away, so you roll over your ally, you both retreat faster. Seems good. Again, not really an Earth Spirit player. Earth Shaker has an interesting new thing. So first of all, Slugger will now work on all abilities instead of just Totem. So you can potentially Echo Slam like a group of heroes and creeps, and everything shoots out and does even more damage. So that could be really cool. We're getting close to TI. We got to bring Earthshaker back, and that might be it. He's also getting a new innate ability. When you die, there's like a little fissure created where you die. You can't move through it, and you get vision and experience while you're dead from it. Really interesting. It's certainly going to grief in one of two scenarios. One, you're moving on that like thin pathway on the side or like through trees, and you're just gonna block your team and they're gonna get screwed by your death and then die. It could work to your advantage as well, where you die and it blocks the enemies and then your team gets away, right? So double edge there. The XP is cool, but you're definitely going to see an Earthshaker try to gank the mid lane, get killed, and then while they're dead, they're splitting XP with their mid laner. That mid is not going to be happy. So it's very interesting, but also there's some possible negative sides to it. Ember was one of the best heroes in the game, and I think they tried to nerf it, but his win rate actually went up. So you see they nerfed Double Impact, which is one of his more popular facets. And they tried to take Immolation and make that his innate ability instead of like split it from Flame Guard. But I think the damage numbers must be better this way because the Searing Change mana got nerfed and his win rate went up. So something happened here. And I think what it is Immolation plus Flame Guard might actually do more damage than it did before. I didn't deep dive into the numbers. I can't quite remember what they were off the top of my head, but I don't know. You can keep playing Ember if you like him. I think Enchantress is going to be pretty good if you're willing to micro. She didn't get nerfed at all, and in fact got buffed. Her innate ability is now good. It's going to make the enemy neutral camps do more damage. 10% by default, and then 3% per Enchantress level. So, for example, Enchantress is a strong laning hero. She lanes, she kicks you out, she's like level 5. The enemy carry can't lane, they go jungle. The camps are now 25% harder because they're doing more damage. And also the mine and the well got nerfed, whatever that one is, right? So they're getting less regen in the sides. Very interesting change. I don't actually know how much it matters in the mid to late game when killing creeps becomes much easier. But in the early game, I think it could be quite annoying if you're already winning as Enchantress. It's going to be very tough on the enemies trying to jungle to catch up. Hoodwink got some nerfs to Acorn Shot, but I still think she's pretty viable if you like this hero. Lina has a new innate ability called Combustion. Every 150 damage, the enemies overheat and they will do like a little burst around them. As a hero with a ton of AoE, and even if she goes right click, she builds like a Gleipnir. Seems really good for farming speed or extra damage in team fights. Lone Druid got a new facet. I thought it would be good. So he only gets 3 inventory slots with bare necessities, but each slot gives him bonus passive stats. So for example, you get a crown that is 4 stats, but with the bonus, let's say it's like level 1, you would actually get 6 stats. Now, the benefit of this is that everyone says, oh, Lone Druid, 12 slots, right? The best scaling core, but no one ever gets to that point. That's like a 2-hour game to be 6 slotted on both the Bear and Lone Druid. So now when you buy like 3 Wraith Bands for Lone Druid, that's it. You get 3 Wraith Bands and you get bonus stats from them, and you don't have to buy 6 Wraith bands. So you're saving money, still getting a good chunk of stats. I think it's a really interesting change. It also applies to the neutral item, which the Bear no longer gets its own neutral item slot. It just shares whatever you have, but what you have on Lone Druid, the hero, actually does get the bonus stats. I think this is good, but his win rate actually dropped. I don't fully know why. I don't know if there's like bugs with anything. I don't know if people just need to figure out a new build. Maybe it's people coming back to Lone Druid to try him, and a lot of bad Lone Druid players are lowering the win rate. Let's give it a little bit. Let's keep an eye on it. Maybe it needs a slight change, but I am very interested in this new facet. Ooh, this might immediately invalidate things I am literally in the middle of talking about. It's probably just bug fixes, so maybe like PL's stuff, or like maybe this Lone Druid, maybe he had a bug. That might be fixed. Let me check real quick. I didn't see anything. Hopefully it's just bug fixes. Maybe PL's win rate's going to go up. Lycan has a new facet called Alpha Wolves. It is a new mechanic we've never had. You can level up an ability, Summon Wolves, now to level 6. The other two, Howl and Feral Impulse, will only go up to level 3 now to balance it out, I guess. It takes up to level 11 to be able to get to level 6 on these abilities, since you can't like double up, and they carried that over to levels 5 and 6, I guess. So at level 11, you can have level 6 Summon Wolves. Really cool. It does stuff. I'm just going to leave it here for you to read. The Wolves do more. I don't know how good it is. His win rate had a very slight drop, which could be people just figuring out the build. Maybe it's good. It's cool. I like the idea. Medusa is going to be good. I wanted to try it as a support. I did it in an unranked party. I don't think it's actually that great. Maybe it's something you could do, but core Medusa is actually just going to be good, I believe. So, Venomous Volley, new facet. They're going to remove the old one. It wasn't very good. Every 5th attack, she applies a pretty powerful slow, attack speed slow, and cast speed slow. Very interesting. Some other changes. So her mana shield is just a default ability, and she's going to get a new ability called Gorgon's Grasp. It fires like 3 little circles in front of you. They increase in size as you go, and they root and do damage. There's a slight overlap in these roots, so you can actually do double damage in those spaces. So she is a hard farming carry who just got another farming tool that also roots. It does physical damage, by the way, so if she petrifies her opponent, she will get bonus damage on this ability. I can't see how this is not really, really good for carry Medusa, and her win rate does seem to reflect that. It is, where the hell is she on this list? There we go. She has shot up. It seems really good. If you like Medusa, I would definitely give her a shot. If you watch Pro Dota, you know Monkey King is busted, and they didn't even change Simian Stride. They nerfed some other elements to it. It did affect his win rate a little bit, but I don't think it really matters. I think you're still going to see a bunch of Monkey King picked in the first phase, at least at the professional level. He's much harder to make it work in the pub scene, but in Pro Dota, it's super busted to have insane mobility on this hero. Templar Assassin got a nerf in that she no longer starts with Psyblades, but they reworked some stuff that I think might end up being pretty decent for her. And she has a new innate ability that is particularly interesting, as it lets her see the exact Roshan respawn timer. Now, you did have traps before, and any high-level player will keep track of the time to know roughly when Rosh should spawn, but to know exactly when you need to be there, or if you can continue pushing bottom and still make it to the top for the Rosh fight, it opens up a lot of efficiency plays. So I'm very curious. In pubs, it won't matter like whatsoever below Divine or Immortal. Probably like mid-Immortal, it won't matter because no one even does Rosh anyways when it's available, so whatever. But at the pro scene, I am very interested to find out if they will continue to play TA and how they will use this respawn timer, because it kind of goes both ways. Like TA, her team knows like, oh, we don't need to be down there. But the enemy team's going to look at them and be like, they're not positioning around Roche, so it must not be spawning yet. So I guess we don't need to go either. I'm so interested in the mind games that are going to be involved with Third Eye. Venomancer has a very interesting change here. Septic Shock is his new innate ability, and depending on how many debuffs he has applied to his opponent, he does 10% of his base damage per auto attack as extra damage. If he gets an Aghanim Scepter, this moves up to 20%, and the Plague Wards apply it. I'm going to be trying this out because Poison Sting also got technically nerfed in the fact that you no longer start with it, but buffed as the early numbers and the later numbers actually got slightly increased. Plague Ward, slightly nerfed, but I think there's some crazy damage potential here with the right builds. Maybe it's an off lane, maybe it's a really greedy position 4 thing. Position 5 probably can't do it. Very interested. You know I love Venomancer. I'm going to try it out. I'll let you guys know what I find out. Visage has a new facet where he just gets extra gold when he kills a target with Soul Assumption. A bunch for heroes, reduced amount for creeps. Very interested in how that ends up working. Void Spirit, blocking this. Void Spirit also has a new facet, but they also removed an old facet, so he's still at 2. And when you dissimulate and you move away to the side, like it spawns 3 behind him. Not fully sure how you will use this, but it puts more crowd control in a fight, which is typically good. Weaver's early lane is going to be nerfed because he no longer starts with Geminate attack. Like for most heroes, starting with one of your passives was not really a great innate, but for some it was. TA and Weaver were 2 such heroes. So that is a nerf to him. Every time he uses an ability, he will gain 50 attack range for 7 seconds. I actually think Carry Weaver will benefit more from the new innate ability. In terms of support Weaver, once you get to like level 4-ish, you're about the same. If you like support Weaver, I think you can still play it, but your early levels are going to be worse. So that's it for now. I will make a follow-up video with some of the ideas we talked about that I'm going to explore, but also once the patch actually settles, maybe like 7.37b comes out, I will dive deeper into this. I'll give you guys, the list of the best heroes, all that. But day 1, you never know. There's a lot of cooking to be done. So stay tuned. See you in a future video. Goodbye.